A huge new free update is here, which adds new life to Dead Island 2. There are some major new features in this free update, like harder zombies, a whole new co-op game mode, which looks pretty impressive, new game plus, and more. Is Dead Island 2 finally worth your time? As someone who has played it since launch and was a little bit disappointed to some degree, stick with me, this is my brutally honest view. Before we dive into its hyped up new game mode, let's first see whether the new game plus and everything new that's been added is worth playing or not. What does the new game plus have to offer exactly? You will be pleased to know that you do start with all your previous upgrades, which will be available from the beginning. This gives you a much needed head start that you'll definitely need, and I'll explain why in just a second. You are also given 3 additional skill slots and an increased level cap, which just makes you even more OP against zombies. It's also another incentive to play through the story for a second time, but that's not the only reason why the game's allowing you to become more overpowered. Here is where the new game plus differs from your first playthrough. So the many types of Apex zombie variants, you know, the ones that make you want to smash your controller for the nearest set of teeth, will spawn earlier in the game this time around and in new locations to make things more difficult and catch you off guard. So be prepared and make sure you have high level weapons, because it doesn't stop there. You know these hideous looking things? Well, get a crash helmet ordered for whoever lives with you, as they are even more brutal and difficult to kill this time around, which means this controller will be learning how to fly. And don't get me wrong, I love the design of these utter freaks, but Christ, I'd rather spend another hour with my nan than try and fight one of them. Those who like a challenge will be at least gifted with a stiff rod on, as they are even more difficult in New Game Plus and look even more leery. Be prepared for a bit of a fright. On the flip side, thankfully there are some new weapons to help combat these utter goblins. The new weapons are appreciated, and thank you for not charging my nan's life for it, like most other games do these days. But it doesn't end there. To top off New Game Plus, we even have new skins. To be honest, the shits I give about God to Christ skins are in the minuses. Those who get turned on by changing the way your character looks, even though you can't see your damn self because it's a first person game, will be happy at least. So New Game Plus does sound pretty decent, and to be fair, I had fun with it. Although, it would have been great if it was released a bit sooner, as this game has been out for well over a year. And yes, it's not going to transform the entire game, so those who didn't like it in the first place aren't going to suddenly be won over in the New Game Plus. But this new game mode might just change your mind. At first glance, it genuinely looks promising and certainly has caught the attention of new players who didn't like the look of Dead Island 2 the first time around. After playing it for a good amount of time, here is what I thought. The new co-op horde mode Neighbourhood Watch sort of reminds me of the features I dreamt of having in Call of Duty Zombies, before things got milked to piss and out of hand. In this mode, you spend 4 days preparing yourself, gathering supplies, setting traps, and completing objectives, and I really love this idea and premise. Each character has different classes, weapons, and abilities, so it's important you work as a team and don't just piss about. Although it does kind of suck that we can't use our characters from the offline story mode. I guess it's not the end of the world though. Preparing yourself and carefully setting up booby traps, along with watching zombies get twatted, is very satisfying. As each day passes, you get rewards such as new abilities, weapons, and traps. Another nice little touch. The 5th and final day is absolute carnage, where it all kicks off, and you encounter waves of these freaks. Before giving you my full verdict on this update, is the new game mode Neighbourhood Watch actually any good? So if you've got no mates, or your friends just don't have the game, you can actually search for players and play with randoms, which was highly requested. On the build up to the 5th and final day, where it all kicks off, the challenges on the days prior are somewhat entertaining and include defending things, killing particular zombie types, finding specific loot, etc. Yes, it would bore you pissless doing it by yourself, but with other players, it's actually kind of entertaining. After each day, which doesn't take as long as your morning schlong to complete, you are teleported to a safe house where you can buy, sell, upgrade weapons, and use a tool bench. It's also relatively easy to obtain decent weapons, and you'll definitely need to make the most of the limited time you get in the safe house by upgrading your stuff, as each day gets progressively harder, so you definitely want to proceed with the best weapons possible. Although it's important to note note that you can vote for particular challenges, and some are harder than others. So if you're a pussy like me, you can vote for the easier ones, as I personally didn't fancy speaking to the missus through holes in the wall due to getting pissed off. Once you do return to the action, I also noticed pretty quickly that this new mode seriously has a rod on for getting you to defend certain things for a limited amount of time, whilst caning a load of zombies at you. Also, I never found it too difficult or repetitive just yet. But here is where things change slightly. On the highly anticipated 5th and final day, where it all kicks off and you battle waves of zombies, it sort of has similar vibes to Call of Duty Zombies, where you'll get short breaks between each wave, compose yourself, set up traps, etc. Although, you really don't have long to take a breath. And once again, you are tasked with defending something. This time, it's your shelter. Also, it's super important to keep a close eye on it, and you'll see why in just a second. As you're battling these ugly munters in very satisfying ways, wave after wave, and things grow more and more intense, if you don't pay attention for about 0.4 seconds, it's so easy to somehow miss one of these sneaky little gobshites, destroying the shelter without you noticing, and it goes from quite an intense zombie battle to the most anticlimactic game over I've ever seen. Christ, is that it? Jesus. So, is Dead Island 2 worth playing? For those revisiting it again, here is my honest verdict, followed by whether it's worth picking up if you're completely new to Dead Island 2. Firstly, I love the fact this game hasn't just been forgotten about, and the fans who enjoy this game are given a reason to load it up again, regardless of the criticism and average reviews it received on launch. Yes, it's not perfect, and I still think the first installment, despite its age, is better in some respects. Watch my previous Dead Island 2 video for the full breakdown. Regardless, this free update is quite substantial, and it does give those who enjoyed it the first time around a reason to pick it up again, and the new co-op game mode is really enjoyable. Considering this new update is entirely free, it does feel quite fleshed out. Most games would normally ask about $69 for a single game mode these days, so we've got to appreciate it. Whether you play with randoms or some friends, there is fun to be had, and I personally enjoyed this more than doing the co-op story mode. As for the people who weren't keen on Dead Island 2 or haven't played it before, due to the game costing less than half the price when compared to release, I would definitely recommend giving it a try if you are a fan of zombie games. In no way would it feel like you've wasted your money. The fact this game hasn't just been abandoned and forgotten about, and has had many DLCs and various updates since release, should be praised, as Dead Island 2 went through absolute development hell. Despite it lacking some of the charm and features the first game had, at its current price tag, it's a solid zombie installment that is certainly worth playing if you are a fan of the zombie genre. And if you do want to pick up Dead Island 2 or any of its DLC, make sure to grab it at a discounted price by using the link in the description down below. Do let me know your honest thoughts on this game in the comments, and whether you've played it recently, I would love to know. And to find out 10 open world games you've got to play that aren't the most obvious games you can think of, make sure to click the card on screen. You don't want to miss this. It's definitely worth checking out. Thank you guys for watching as always, and I'll see you next time.